Hi everyone, welcome to On Call with Dr. Dave, where I interview some of the most influential people in the worlds of nutrition, fitness, and of course, medicine. Speaking of medicine, we have a very special guest on our program today, Dr. Dana Coryell. Dr. Coryell is a leader in shaping the world of healthcare professionals online and especially in social media. She is a board-certified internist who has transitioned from the world of being a clinician to helping clinicians with their online branding. If you haven't heard of Dr. Coryell, I'm sure you will, as she has been recognized for her achievements thus far, including named to Medscape's top 20 physician influencers in 2019. She was featured in publications such as the LA Times, Boston Globe, Huffington Post, Self Magazine. So check out this interview with Dr. Coryell. It's very exciting. And the title is this: Should Doctors Be on Social Media? Hey, should you be on social media? Should everybody be on social media? Should we all be branding ourselves? All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the interview. Until next time, this is Dr. Dave. Hi, everyone. I would like to welcome our very special guest today, Dr. Dana Coryell, to this episode of On Call with Dr. Dave, where we interview the most influential people in medicine, nutrition, and overall healthcare promotion. Today's interview is a little different than our usual, and it's really going to be near and dear to my heart, no pun intended, because we're going to talk about social media. And especially doctors on social media or healthcare providers on social media. And we have the guru of healthcare providers on social media and probably social media in general, Dr. Dana Coryell. So thank you, Dr. Coryell, for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to join us today.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me on.
Okay, so let's just cut right to the chase. So I've read a lot about you. I almost feel like a stalker in a weird sort of way. I feel like we should know each other better, but we don't. But the bottom line is this: you were an incredibly successful internal medicine doctor in New York. You had a thriving practice. Patients loved you. You had a leadership position. And you decided, and I want to say to give it up, but you decided to maybe transition to social media. So what were you thinking? Were you a social media person already and you saw this huge potential? Was there a void? Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. First of all, I like to always consider it as a pivot because, I definitely left behind my clinical practice, but I'm still a physician. I'm still a doctor. I still have the same medical training. In fact, I'm a lot more experienced at this point in my life. Secondly, I always say I didn't leave medicine or being a clinical physician to do social media. I left it to become an entrepreneur and to fix what I hope is to fix some of the healthcare issues and do that through online tools. And so, I welcome you it's very complex. I welcome you to ask questions, but at the core of what I do now is that I hope to teach physicians how powerful the online world is and that it's really important to embrace being on it and how much more you can impact healthcare, your career, etc., when you take on the online world the right way.
Okay, I love that response because as you're speaking, my brain's going crazy here with questions. So let's start right away. On your website, Life After Medicine, you write, and I quote, "Healthcare is broken." So and I know it's a complicated answer, but in a couple of sentences, what do you mean by healthcare is broken?
Yeah, it's extremely complicated. There are so many reasons why healthcare is broken, in my opinion, from the physician perspective. First of all, because physicians aren't supposed to say that it's broken. The healers are not supposed to need healing. And that's already where something's broken. But at the end of the day, medicine has become so blatantly a business at this point. And that's fine because medicine's a business in a, capitalistic society, but when the person in charge is not the doctor, the person who actually has trained to heal the patient, it really doesn't work. It becomes a factory. It becomes a factory with the factory owner sitting at the top, completely dissociated from the space where the action's actually happening. It doesn't work in medicine because the doctor actually is a vital component of the care for the patient. So that beautiful golden patient-physician relationship used to be like this. It used to be super important, and it should be. But now it's like this because there's so many things that have come in between us, including those, organizations and systems that are buying us out. And, again, we need hospitals, but we need to still be in control of what we do. And so it doesn't work. And then additionally, insurance companies, it's impossible to practice medicine today the way we used to because of the ridiculous amounts of limitations that we're facing. So again, there's many other factors. There's EHR issues, the fact that we need to look into a computer screen and we can't look into our patient's eyes. There's many, many issues. And in fact, on Sunday, not to plug, but I'm debuting a free lecture series that's hosted by Samuel Sham, the author of The House of God. And the actual topic is putting the human back into medicine. And so this is with a panel of physicians that rotates every week for 6 weeks. This is what we're going to discuss.
Yeah, I love that answer because it sounds like to me, you're using social media as a medium to take back that personalized relationship between the physician and their patients, where the physician is in control.
100%. I couldn't have said it better. That's exactly what I see when I view the online world. I see this powerful tool that has the potential to bring back what we used to have. And how do we do that? How do we get to what you just said, where we bring back that golden relationship? We arm each physician with the ability to create online presence and create an online personal brand. Because if each physician becomes popular online, becomes someone that is an expert, that's viewed as an expert using online tools, then we're worth more in real life.
Absolutely. You're not dispensable any longer. Now you have a following, right? And
exactly. You bring with you worth. Now, it's sad to say, because we used to bring our medical degree, and that was literally all we needed. We needed a medical degree and we were worth something, right? But because tides have changed, we now need to bring with us a different kind of worth. Great. Let's change with the system. We might hate it, right? I hate social media. I think it's scary and I think there's bad things that come of it. But if it's here, and it's here to stay, and this is where everyone is at, fine. Get yourself in there, make yourself someone, increase your worth in real life, and then take that to your employer, to wherever you want to work, and say, guys, listen, this is what I bring with me to the table. Yeah, bam, you're already sort of worth more to them. And now the physician actually counts for more. And ultimately, the physician cares most, I hope, about the patient. And so hopefully what the physician says will go more, at least.
Yeah, I love it. And I think a lot of doctors don't think this way. That, I hate to say it, but I feel like a lot of doctors have become sheep, where, they're told to see X amount of patients. They're going to be given X amount of RVUs. And if they don't like it, guess what? See ya. And don't forget the non-compete, right? But now with social media, you can say, look, things don't work out. That's fine. But I'm taking me, my brand, my presence, my following somewhere else.
Yeah, sheep is an interesting term. I call it cogs in a wheel, because we are cogs in a wheel. So it's a problem because we're not cogs in a wheel. We are people that are intelligent, that spent 30 years of our lives dedicated to this field. And so the people that are in control right now, they know that, and they know that we are sort of at their beck and call, because we don't have anything else we can do. If all the rules and regulations have changed so that this is the way it's done, because you really can't do anything about it, then they're going to always be in control. They know that this is happening. And so what I'm suggesting is that we fuel change by using this powerful tool called the online. And it's happening. It's just happening slowly. But I agree with you. I think doctors don't necessarily see it, but what worries me even more is that patients don't see it.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing for doctors to see it, and they're slowly seeing it. But if the patients don't see it, we are increasingly viewed as whiners, right? Look at that doctor. Because traditionally, it's like you think of the doctor as this, oh, you think our life is so easy, right? Because we're sort of, we're comfortable. We have a safe job, etc. But slowly we are burning out, and patients need to understand that this is a dangerous place to be in. If our healers need healing and are slowly burning out, they will slowly leave medicine, and we will not have the brightest and the best going into medicine.
Such a great point. So, all right. So we established social media. It has huge potential for physicians, but I'm not just gonna say physician. I'm gonna say healthcare professionals, any business. I think any person, if they have a story to tell, should really consider creating a social media page and brand. But I also don't think, and one thing I've learned is I think you have to figure out initially, what are your goals in social media? I think a lot of people start with the idea of making money, an alternative income. But I always think that that's a mistake. And, I don't think that should be the role. I think the role has to be, what's your story? My story, I'm a preventative cardiologist. So my story is I'm obsessed with preventing heart disease and procedures and bad events. That's what I do. That's what I think about, I dream about. So I think we need to go into this with the understanding that, what's your message? Like, how do you want to help people, or how do you want to help yourself? Maybe it's a therapeutic medium for yourself to get your ideas out there.
I love that. I love that. I think that first and foremost, you need to know your why. Like, why are you doing this? Because if you don't know why, then you can't do it effectively. So if you're doing it to empower physicians, then you don't need to stress the money part. And that's how I went into it, right? Because I'm later in my life and later in my career, I didn't stress the money aspect of it, even though I realize that if it's not a business that I'm doing in creating my company, SoMeDocs, then it won't really have sway down the line. So I've done a lot pro bono. I do a lot for free. Most of my stuff is free. But if you're going into it wanting to earn money, maybe as a side gig, that's fine. But it's not going to happen overnight. Nothing on social media happens overnight. And I always feel like if people have time, which most doctors do, right? We're not pressed to make money, most of us. We're just looking for that next or that out or that like stress relief. Then the best way to approach it is to take your time. It is to go in and dabble. And sure, you need your why, but you don't have to know your why right away. You can just get on and experiment and open your mind up and see the possibilities and make your connections and dabble. But eventually, when you need to create your own online brand, sure, you need a story because your audience needs to connect with you and understand what it is that you're trying to do.
Right, exactly. All right, so good. So now let's transition to the next question. And this is something I always ask and I always not struggle with, but all right, so a doctor has a social, or a healthcare provider, or anybody has a social media page. My concern always is appearing professional, right? Not appearing like I'm a clown or I'm something. Where do you draw the line of, because doctors tend to be conservative, we're conservative by training. Where do you draw the line? Should doctors show themselves working out? Should they show themselves in the bikini? Can I walk around in a Speedo because I feel like I'm in good shape and show patients that and argue that I'm trying to provide an example? Where do you cross the line?
Yeah, this is not that it's controversial, but this is where a lot of people differ in opinion. So first and foremost, the beauty of an online brand is that it's yours. So that's important for me to state, is that we vary in the spectrum of who we are and our personalities and what we think is okay and what we think is not. And an online brand actually allows us to exercise that. while we are employed, I do, however, think that our employer needs full disclosure from us and we need to be transparent from them. I also think that we need to establish that this is our brand and not theirs. And we can have a whole different discussion about that, because I think that it's important to establish that the pie is yours from the get-go, so that you could take the pie and you could lift it up and go somewhere else if you end up leaving your employer. So in my personal opinion, you need to really curate your online brand. So you need to decide what you're comfortable posting about and what you're not. So sure, when we post personal things, the audience connects with it more. But the problem is how much personal is good versus how much personal is maybe taking it too far, where our audience gets turned off. And so again, there was that whole thing about med bikini, right? Where it was women were up in arms that they can post themselves in bikinis whenever they want. And yes, of course, we are human. And that's the point of being on social media, is that we are human too. However, you need to decide what your social media presence aims to achieve.
Right.
If it's a professional presence where you want to, let's say, display that you're a physician, maybe you want to add in a sprinkling of yourself being a human, show that you do things like others out there. Mm-hmm. You need to decide if that means that you need to show yourself in a bikini, or maybe you want to show yourself in other ways. Just like you need to decide if you want to put your children out there, which is also something that people aren't comfortable with, understandably. Mm-hmm. The point is that you curate your presence. Mm-hmm. So you need to decide in advance, what am I doing this for? Like we said, what's your why? How am I going to do it? Meaning, what content pieces am I going to share? Including, am I going to make it all professional and then sprinkle in a little bit personal, but then what's that personal going to be? And at the end of the day, you've got to be comfortable with your decision, because it is the online world. So once you put it out there, it's out there for the world to see.
For good.
Yeah. Because again, if you have 5 followers, then likely nothing's going to happen. You could take it back and no one saw it. But if you have 5,000 followers and you put something out and maybe it offended someone, then they can take a snapshot. Even if you delete it, they could take a snapshot and then show everybody and say, look at this person, how dare they? And that's one of the, unfortunately, I think one of the negatives of social media is that we can't be human. We can't make a mistake because it's so one-dimensional. We don't see anything that happened from behind the scenes. We don't see the intention. We don't see that the person is a well-meaning good person that maybe just made a bad decision or chose something that was a mistake, etc.
How about friending patients on social media? Or, and I'm not talking about giving medical advice, because that's a whole other bag of worms, but just a patient reaches out to you and says, hey, check out this picture of me at the party drinking a beer. You know,
that's again, your venture, your curation, but I think it's a slippery slope for sure. This is actually the dangers of social media, because we're still in a field, right, where everything we do matters. People look up to us, but we're also responsible for so much more than the average person. So if the average person who's not a doctor posts something, whatever. Yeah. But if a doctor posts something, that could have totally different implications, even if we post the same exact thing. Yeah. And it's sad on one hand, and yet I understand some of it, right? Because we're doctors, but it's a lot of pressure to have for physicians. And that's at the basis of, hashtags like med bikini, is that it's hard for doctors to accept that now this is the new medium with which we communicate, but we can't be ourselves. Right. But that's where we need to distinguish between a professional presence that we curate that's important to ensure is in line with what we want out there, versus your own personal account where you can friend actual friends and be yourself and maybe be more transparent about your mistakes, because your friends are going to be more forgiving. Right. So in your professional presence, I don't think that you should friend patients. I think it's a slippery slope.
I think it's important that although it's very easy just to start a Facebook page or a YouTube channel, I do think it's important for doctors to get guidance initially.
100%. Oh, 100%. I do think it needs to be curated. I think, again, and I've written about this, you can, and I've lectured about this, you can definitely dabble and look. You can take out what I call your online real estate, right? Like your website, you can own it because a lot of it also is free. You can own your Facebook page real estate because once you own it, and it's, especially if it's free, nobody else can claim it. So you should own it, you should look, but you don't have to necessarily start curating your presence until you establish what's right, what's wrong, what you want to do. You have to be really careful.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of the day, it sounds like you would agree that most physicians and healthcare providers should strongly consider branding themselves.
Absolutely. Strongly consider, yes. I don't think anyone should feel pressured to do it, but I think realistically in 2020 and the way that we're headed, I feel like the online world is increasingly where we're living, and more importantly, where our target audience is living.
Right.
And so no matter who you are, right, if you want to increase your patient load or if you want to move your career forward, your target audience is likely living online. And so you need to realize that and hopefully put yourself in there. And if I can just say really fast, because I don't want this to end without like saying this, my venture, SomiDocs, which can be accessed at somidocs.com, it seeks to actually help both the physician and the patient. And I know that you have a large patient audience, so I want to let them know as well that we may be talking about physicians, but really I'm targeting both because I would like to arm physicians, but also provide a space where patients can find these physicians that are present online so that they can follow physicians. Like, you don't need to necessarily always see your doctor nowadays. You can actually follow what they say online.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you say that. I want to ask you more about SomiDocs in a second, but I started my social media page because one of my areas of interest is nutrition and lifestyle to prevent heart disease. And unfortunately, those are the longest discussions in the office. And, you know, in this day and age, it's very hard to have an hour discussion on nutrition and lifestyle. So I created a page that I told my patients, go watch my video on oatmeal, go watch my video on olive oil, et cetera. So it does save doctors a lot of time in the office. But let's go back to SomiDocs for a second. I'm a patient. I'm Mrs. Smith, right? And how does SomiDocs help me? I'm a curious person. I'm interested in nutrition and healthcare. Tell me how Mrs. Smith would benefit from SomiDocs.
Great question. So I'm building up the patient arm. Right now, what's available is that you go to, first of all, you go to somidocs.com. There is a new tab called Resources for the Press and the Public. There is a data bank, and you can peruse the data bank based on field of specialty and find a physician based on their field of specialty, based on their profiles. And their profiles are very uniquely curated to kind of give you a little bit of a who they are as a person. What do they stand for? What is their social media presence about? You could look through the photos, you could click into who you like, but then there's a link directly to their stuff. So you're taken straight to their work where you can contact them the way they would like to be contacted. So that's one way, is the data bank. Another way is that I'm curating different courses, different resources for physicians to get their information straight from my physicians online. So that's another way. And then a third way is to join our Facebook group. We have a second so we have one Facebook group that's active, that's for physicians only, but we have a second one as well called SomiDocs Public. When you search for it and you ask to get in, it's open to everyone right now. And it seeks to have physician leaders starting public conversations about things and helping patients to direct them to the different experts online that have medical degrees. So that's the gist of how I'm looking to help out patients out there. And again, I mentioned press because that's another area where I honestly think that it can be easier. The press doesn't need to go through hurdles to find the medical experts, right? We are medical doctors and we are too busy to be found. But those of us that are actually online, right? Those of us that want to be found, that want to be asked for quotes, that want to contribute to things online can be found like this. We don't need a middleman like a PR company. We don't need a middleman like, right? A bureau that holds us. You can just find the cardiologist or the endocrinologist that you need for your project or for your conference, and you can click in and get them that way.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's very powerful for patients too, because you're doing the vetting. If you go to an online search engine like Google, Yahoo, and you type in some type of disorder, it's going to populate usually the people who pay the most to become populated, right? There's really
100%.
no vetting per se. So maybe that's a great area for SoMe is that vetting process. It's a filtering process that, when you go to SoMe these doctors have been screened. These are people you can, for the most part, trust. And then it's very powerful because you're going to save yourself 5-10 hours of research and headaches and being maybe ripped off or misdirected. So I love the idea, and we'll definitely put the link below so people can click on it.
Yeah, wonderful. And again, it serves the purpose of just handing that control back into the physician, because SoMe is not the one that then curates the presence for the doctor. Although again, there are plenty of resources for doctors that helps that out. But SoMe just serves as the connector, right? So we are essentially just handing off that this is a physician, follow them. We're not responsible for what they say, because the last thing I want to do is have my company responsible even for the doctor themselves. But hey, this is a doctor that's earned a medical degree. So maybe it's worth taking a look at their online presence and seeing if you like what they say. And if it resonates with you, follow them, take their course, listen to their podcast, etc.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you're like a modern day matchmaker.
There's been different comparisons, but sure. I mean, listen, I know what I'm good at. I know what my strengths are. And that's where me being an entrepreneur hopefully works, is that I bring my strengths to the table and hope to make a dent in healthcare, a positive dent in healthcare, by helping doctors and patients get closer and putting my strengths into it, which is content creation and creative projects. And that's where I think SoMe shines.
I love it. Now, okay, so you and I are clearly not introverted, but we have a lot of colleagues who are. And forget colleagues, there are a lot of people in the world who are introverted, but they have amazing skills or talents, or they have a great message that they really should be sharing, but maybe for whatever reason, they have a hard time doing that. So at the end of each segment, I like to ask you for a tip or a trick. For somebody who's introverted, what's a tip or trick you would give in terms of nothing fancy, but what can they do to at least get started with online presence?
I love this. I'm thinking about how to answer this. I mean, you team up with someone like me. Not to say I'm going to be the face of your project, but that's exactly where SoMe can help, right? Someone who's introverted comes to SoMe right? Becomes a member or whatever, gets in touch with me. And we together brainstorm. First of all, you can get someone to help you sharpen why you're there, what you want to do, and how you can do that. But you team up with someone like me that knows the tools and can create them for you based on your skills. So an example is, if you're introverted, but your strength is writing, great. Then we create a series together that you're at the head of, but that SoMe maybe adds the images to and circulates. I even have the platform so we can distribute, versus you can distribute to your own space, but we help you to curate that. Or if you're shy, but you're really good at, talking about something specific. Great. Let's create a course together where it's not out in the public, so you don't have to feel overwhelmed. And we have other people maybe hosting, but helping you to get over that fear. There's so many different ways that we could do things, but the tip is just to find someone who can help you to establish a brand in a way that you're comfortable doing.
That's great. I mean, that's amazing. And to be very honest with you, before I came across you, I didn't even know that service existed. So that's going to be a tremendous help for a lot of people. And this has been great. I mean, I've been doing social media for a while now. It's a hobby for me. I love what I do. I don't monetize it. Actually, it costs me money probably. But at the end of the day, it's great. It's so nice to hear people like you speak about social media and also empower physicians. And, at the end of the day, I almost think we have an ethical obligation at times as physicians to go on social media because there's so much garbage out there when it comes to various health conditions. There's so much peddling going on that it's refreshing to have a place that people can go to, whether it be SoMe Docs or my sites, and just get unbiased information without being sold something or told something or given false hope. So I enjoyed this conversation because it's very honest and it's very truthful. And we're not going to sell anything at the end of this discussion. There's no supplements or it's just information. It's just empowerment.
Absolutely. Here, here. And that's that's what's important for today is just again bring back the healthcare of yesteryear and put the patient and the physician back together for that golden relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an amazing comment to end this interview. And, I know you're swamped. I know you have a big production coming out on Sunday, as you mentioned. Where can people see that if they wanted to?
So right now, everything is on SoMeDocs.com. And so if you are a physician or a patient or member of the press, just go to SoMeDocs.com. There's 2 separate tabs. I'm still working on the website. I do everything. So everything is physician founded, physician run, which helps me to really make this great because I can literally go in and just change anything in a second. But you go in, there's one of our resources is the series resource. And we actually have about 4 series already, but there's other resources coming because as I explained, there are physicians that are slowly hearing about SoMeDocs and turning to us and saying, well, can you help me build the series? And yes, we can. So there's a bunch of series coming. The one on Sunday, as I mentioned, is with host Samuel Shem. He's the author of The House of God. He has a new book coming out and different physicians on the panel. So come and join us. And if you're a patient, come and take a look at what physicians are doing online. SoMeDocs.com.
Great. So Dr. Coryell, thank you so much for your time. I hope we can do this again in the future. And we'll make sure everybody has your information. They can reach out to you. And again, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on and giving me the opportunity.
It's our pleasure.